Reluctant Entrepreneur Tarot. I'm Diana Ideas, Master Certified Coach, and this video takes you behind the scenes of Reluctant Entrepreneur Tarot, Card 5, Money. So, money is at the foundation of what we do as entrepreneurs, reluctant or not, which is why the money is on the ground and also through the pathway here. The structure is the foundation, the structure. So, money is very much at the root of whether or not someone can be an entrepreneur or continues to be an entrepreneur. So, later in this deck, we'll talk about risk. But one of the main risks that people are often averse to has to do with money. Do they have enough money? Will they be able to sustain it? And then are they comfortable asking for money? Is this something where it's going to grate on their worth? So money is just such a core and foundational element, which is why it has its own card. So the quote for this is "No margin, no mission" by Sister Irene Krauss. And from a very practical perspective, regardless of what the goals are of your business or for you individually, if there is not funding, that mission is unlikely to happen or unlikely to happen on the same scale. So I share this with people training to be coaches because oftentimes coaches will come in to help people. But it's also important that they look at their own relationships with money and worth and how they feel about charging, because oftentimes folks on the spiritual path, folks on the coaching path, the healing path have an aversion to money. That's also why I love this quote so much, because it's from a nun, and there can be a correlation in our cultures. Oh, you don't mix money and religion. Women shouldn't talk about money. Good people don't talk about money. So there is a lot of symbolism here. The symbolism of money is not just that paper that's printed on that we rule our lives behind. There are so many kind of the hierarchy, the archetypes, the cultural values, the complexity of what's happening with money as we're built in as a culture, as we're built as society, but also as we build our business. So some of what I'm doing here also with Sister Irene Krauss, in addition to really liking that quote and feeling that that quote is very important, card 5 is the Hierophant. So in tarot, the Hierophant is essentially like a pope, a religious figure, leader, someone who is a divine conduit. So you see the fingers pointing to the sky, and then in the other hand, those fingers are considered kind of pointing to the earth. So it's the idea that this person is a divine conduit from messages of a spiritual significance. And you see the leadership role where the Hierophant is guiding or counseling others. So while it may frustrate some that I've associated this typically religious structural card with money, it's looking at really what is the foundation, what is kind of America's religion, what is driving us, and also where are we getting lost? Because the Hierophant can be obviously used for good, but at the same time, sometimes our religious leaders, our heroes, our idols lose sight, they lose track, and are no longer guiding us in that way. Another quote that I had looked at for this card, because of that mix of money and also the divine or the spiritual or religious elements, is "Money is God in Action" by Reverend Ike. So this may make people uncomfortable, this association that with organized religion and money. I invite you, if this, what I'm saying doesn't resonate with you, or if it feels uncomfortable, for you to examine that and explore that, because there's a lot there around money, around symbolism, around religion in our society, in our lives. And part of what tarot does is it moves the unconscious to the conscious and asks us to take a look at that and reflect upon that. So introducing you to one of my favorite decks by Siolo Thompson, Otherkin Tarot. And she says the High Priestess is the scion of the subconscious, feeling, intuition, and dreams, while the Hierophant stands for the opposite, the intellect, knowledge, and worldly structures. So the idea here is that both the High Priestess and the Hierophant are associated with the spiritual. It's a very different interpretation, though. The High Priestess is more on the spiritual side. The Hierophant is more on the structural religious side. We also have the feminine of the high priestess, and the more associated with masculine of the Hierophant. So we know in tarot that there are a lot of pairings. So the first pairing we see is the magician and the high priestess. In this deck is the serial entrepreneur and intuition. The magician is also pointing at the sky using the elements at the disposal, the more kind of masculine association. And then the high priestess is the more kind of darker, mysterious feminine. So there's a lot of magic in tarot. So it starts off on the fool's journey or the entrepreneur's journey. You first meet these two characters, or you have these two concepts that are the more kind of masculine magic and the more feminine magic. So with the Hierophant, we start to come into structure and religion in a different way, as opposed to necessarily the magic. But the quote shared also correlates it to the high priestess. So I wanted to bring the high priestess into this deck. Following that, if we're going in order, it's followed by the Empress and the Emperor. So again, we have that feminine and masculine. The Empress is more associated with the mother. It's kind of what's interesting, this duality between the high priestess and the Empress, in this case, intuition and innovation. Intuition is the more mysterious. Innovation is more the kind of socially acceptable, but there's also the idea of abundance, Mother Nature, that sense of innovation, that sense of growing. The Empress is followed by the Emperor, who has that focus on structure. So as we look at the Hierophant, we look at the money card, you see a combination of some of these elements as we're progressing through the tarot deck, because we have the magic and the divine conduit from the magician and the high priestess. But then also, as we look at some of that masculine energy, that structure, you have this information. Now, what are you going to do with it? That comes in from the money card or looking at the Hierophant. This combination of the divine also leans into and continues with the Lovers, which we'll talk about in the next video, as it has to do with partnership. And as you can see, we have the structures and the light. So these cards also play with those religious and more spiritual connotations. So as far as the money card, questions to consider: how is your cash flow impacting you personally and professionally? What role do your beliefs play in your relationship with money? What structures or processes can improve your financial foundation? And how do your beliefs or emotions about money impact the foundation and success of your business? So these are really foundational, core, and I encourage you to look beyond just the paper of money to the fact that we are driven very much by these symbols, and we have faith or lack of faith in money, and there's a lot of emotion there. There's how we believe and what we believe is really tied up here. But there's also that potential to have it be a leadership, whether it's you or your business. There's that leadership potential, there's that financial structure, and the potential for growth. If you'd like to listen more, Cross Street Coaching Season 4, Episode 3, we focus on money. And the song here, this is more of a personal one than directly correlated, but is George Michael's Faith. So when I was a new entrepreneur and I was excited, I think it was the first time someone had bought something from me for $1,000, and I was excited about it. But at the same time, I was like, well, yeah, but that's barely gonna dent your debt that you have. And I realized that the weight of it, the weight of the entrepreneur and the focus on cash and all the risk was really getting to me. And so one of the things I did is I made a money playlist, like a win playlist. I bought a bell to ding every time someone signed a contract. I got one of those flip scorecards for every dollar. And this song was actually the first song on the money playlist that I needed to have faith and I needed to believe. So in addition to the money card having its association with the Hierophant and what I've shared already, for me, this has also been a part of my personal journey to have faith. So the line in this song, it's more the song itself versus the line But the line we'll share on Instagram is, well, I need someone to hold me, but I'll wait for something more. Yes, I've got to have faith. And I think that's such a crux of where we are in business, whether someone takes on the reluctant entrepreneur journey or whether they don't take it on or whether they continue to sustain it. It's the idea, do we have people in our community? Do we feel held by the divine, our belief system, our support system? Is there something more for us or more for our business that it makes it worth walking down this pathway? And that relationship to faith and also how we behave, how we act, how we spend our money, and what we do with our business. So I hope that helps and that can provide some comfort to you as you're looking through and deciding to take these next steps. So learn more at reluctantentrepreneur.tarot.com. We also have weekly videos on Instagram at Reluctant Entrepreneur Tarot. You can read the descriptions, the questions we discussed, listen to the podcast episode, this video, and work with us. I also do a number of coaching sessions and speaking sessions around the topic of money and just exploring how money impacts people's decisions and their values and their belief system. So those can be accessed on hawthorneunion.com/resources. One of the categories you can choose is money. And also take a look at the executive dashboard, which we'll talk about later in the deck, but also provides a structure for organizing your money. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to following up.